Heard my name already. I'm a professional photographer, and Rod, you are?
I am a camera reviewer and journalist.
Yeah, so
Uh,
this chat is all about photography and gear and anything that you would like to talk about relating to your camera and lenses. So we have something quite interesting today to talk about because obviously you've seen the thumbnails. These OM-10 I actually mentioned. I'm actually more specific talking about the film camera OM-10. Yeah, I don't know what you guys are thinking about, but it's the film camera I'm talking about, and so don't get too excited. But I know that you guys would like to talk about whatever OM system is in store for you in the near future, and I'm pretty sure and very certain that an entry level is on its way. So Rod, and you have seen and tested and used the OM5 and the OM1. And what's your view on these cameras from OM system?
well, I think the OM5 interests me because it's not really so very different to the EM53, and I think a few people have said the same about the M1, though it does have that new stacked sensor. Actually, I haven't used the M1. I've used all the previous ones. I haven't been able to get one yet.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah.
I thought you used it already.
No, no. I think somebody else on Digital Camera World got that particular one. I haven't used the M1, but I've
Right.
got an uh, EM1 3. I've used a 2, and I had a 1. So
Yep.
I'm only one behind. But
You're only one behind.
I've tested the OM5, and I've
Yep.
got an EM5 3, and I've used the EM5 2 and EM5 1. So I've used the OM10s up to about number 3 as well. So
Okay.
I'm more or less up to date.
More or less. Okay. So in that case, let's track back a little bit. So before the OM system era, let's talk about the Olympus side. And so in terms of experience, you have tested probably several Olympus cameras over the past few years, and you have seen and probably have you used the EM10 series, the entry level cameras?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So you have used EM10, EM5, and the
yeah,
EM1 series.
yeah.
So
And the pens.
and depends. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people always get a little bit confused. Maybe not confused in a way that people may think that uh, whenever a new camera is coming, and people are expecting certain things from Olympus at the time, and so whenever the EM10 was rumored to be released, and then they would think, oh, it should have this and this and this and this from the EM1 series, or the EM5. This is a normal thing, obviously when a new camera come out and people will be starting to speculate what sort of features should the new entry level camera has. So, but from your experience, and you've seen the pro cameras, the EM1s, and then you have the semi-pro amateur kind of serious amateur model, the EM5, then the entry level EM10. From your experience, and can you tell, the main differences between them, apart from, being just one is slightly trimmed down version in terms of features?
Well, the EM10 has always been really quite affordable. It's traditionally been lacking a couple of things you might have got in the 5 or the 1. So it's a little later getting the 20 megapixel sensor. So for a long time, you had a 16 megapixel sensor.
Yeah.
You have a tilting screen rather than a vari-angle screen. But I think today probably the gap is narrower than it's ever been, because the Mark IV, and you might need to put me right on a couple of things, Jimmy. The Mark IV, very good full width 4K video. Um,
Yep.
it's contrast AF, but I've always thought Olympus's contrast AF was really practically as good as the phase detect myself for what I shoot and how I shoot things.
Yep.
It's got the 20 megapixel sensor. I think that is it's a very good camera for the money. I suppose the only problem is in the world of cameras and camera journalism, everyone is expecting a constant technical evolution.
Yep.
However, as well as writing camera reviews, for a long time I was heading up Digital Camera World's buying guides.
Yep.
So we'd have buying guides to best cheap camera, best beginner camera, best travel camera. And I continually found myself putting things like the Olympus EM10 or even the pen cameras in those lists because the price was right, the size was right, and they did enough. And I think it's interesting that you've got two aspects to this. You've got the race for technical innovation, and then you've got cameras that most people actually need, and they're not necessarily the same thing. So Olympus, I think, has long been perhaps criticized as putting it too strongly, but people have been expecting more technological advances from Olympus and OM system than perhaps they've seen. But it's easy to lose sight of the fact that the cameras already do what they need to at the right price. And that does sound like an apology and a cop-out, but it actually is true. It actually is true.
It is. Yes, I mean, I personally think that a solid line has to be drawn between different tiers in the lineup, and I think Olympus has done a pretty good job in terms of that sort of line that have been drawn on different cameras. I know as a consumer, as one like myself, who's spending money on a camera, will always want everything. Who doesn't, and especially we're not talking about a couple of £100. We are talking about, even though the EM10 are the entry level camera, but we still talk about £500-600 minimum to get a body. But like you said, and for the money, it's very, very feature rich, and a lot of the features even I myself probably don't even use. And it's something to be said about how advanced cameras these days are, and especially from the from Olympus / OM system nowadays, and from the computational side, they have so many features that definitely beneficial. But how often can you exploit all of them at once or at any time? And because I can't even see myself who make a living from photography using I wouldn't even say that I'm using 10% of what they have listed on the menu. For me, majority of the time I just do exposure triangle manually, using the ISO shutter speed and things. Occasionally I'll dabble into live ND, maybe a little bit of other things. But like you said about the features as well, I know that price and affordability is the main thing about an entry-level camera, and we also have weather sealing, which is one thing that the EM10 has missed because this is not designed for the outdoor. And in contrast, both the EM5 and the EM1 series are weather sealed, and perhaps even have a slightly better build. Because I know the EM5 is slightly heavier than the EM10, and perhaps there were more metal elements within the chassis itself. Obviously, I don't know for sure. I know that since the EM5 Mark III, they have moved away from metal cladded shell to polycarbonate shell, just like the EM10. However, having said that, the weight of the EM5 is still slightly heavier than the EM10. I'm going to start tongue twisting now, the EM10 and the EM5 and EM1 very soon. But yeah, more to that later. Perhaps we can talk a little bit more technologies, and just want to ask the audience, say hello to the audience. I know quite a few has tuned in already, and hello everyone. And if you have any views about entry-level cameras, doesn't necessarily needs to be Olympus, but we can have a little chat about generally about entry-level cameras. Why is it very important for a brand? And the reason I bring up OM-10 film cameras, remember I said film cameras, is that the OM-10 back in the film days, it was the best-selling SLR for Olympus, and it outsold the OM-2, OM-1 by a huge margin. And you can actually say the same thing for all the subsequent digital iterations of the same line. So the EM10 has outsold the EM5 and EM1 by a significant margin. If you look at the Japanese sales figures, you can tell that the EM10 has consistently in the top 10 sales figures, but not the EM5 nor the EM1. No. And so this is important because this is, I wouldn't say necessarily a money maker, but it certainly is it's a door. It's a door for the consumer to enter a brand. Is that correct, Robert?
It's like a halo effect, isn't it? As well, you might aspire to an OM1, but the OM10 or OM-D E-M10 It's just more affordable. It's more affordable. You got me doing it now. So that's the one you actually buy. And if you go back to the original OM-1 and 2,
Yep.
they were the Halo products, but actually everybody bought an EM10
Yep.
because is the one they could afford.
Yep.
And it's a perfectly good camera. And I think you see that with brands everywhere. But I think it's important in photography now and again to have a bit of a reality check about what you need, what people need, and what people buy. And I think the EM10 Mark IV, as it currently is, deserves that at least, because if you get it with the 14 to 42 zoom,
Yep.
this is practically a pocket camera.
Yep.
It might not be the most technically advanced camera in the world,
Yep.
but I would say it's probably the most portable mirrorless camera with a viewfinder. Now, depending on what you look for in a camera, that could be more important than I mean, imagine trying to fit your OM-1 and your 12 to 40 2.8 into your coat pocket just as you leave, just as you're going out the door. You can't do it, can you? It's a far better camera, except that doesn't have that practicality. No. So I do think we need now and again to do a little reality check regarding what we actually need rather than what we think we want.
Absolutely. And when I reviewed the EM10 Mark IV, and I took the camera up in Scotland, and for the entire review, so I tested the camera in Scotland, not Scotland, Lake District. So I was only carrying the EM10 plus a couple of lenses and fit into a very, very tiny pouch. And because I was doing a lot of hikes, I was climbing hills and mountains around the areas, and it was refreshing. And I have to say that, of course, you can all say that, yeah, you can do that with EM5 because it was weather sealed, is probably better. But that's besides the point. And ultimately, you're right there. You have to ask yourself, how often do you really want to shoot in the rain? Are you prepared to shoot in the rain? Because some people, when they see the clouds coming, they probably just run indoor instead of going out and shoot. I'm not saying all of you are, but certainly some people, especially general photographers or some parents, especially with young kids, when the rain comes, they're not going to go out and shoot anyway. So do you really need that weather seal? It's good to have, for sure. But for the sake of, you're getting almost the same image quality, and you got almost all the features from the next level up, which is the EM5, but you're saving quite a bit of money. You can invest in a better lens. And that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah. I think you probably need weather sealing more than I do, Jamie, but I've been out in the rain with cameras that don't have a weather sealing, but I probably just shoot slightly differently without the same kind of pressures. I just put it back in my coat or put it back in the bag so it's in the rain for as little time as possible. And so far that's not come back to bite me. I'm sure that one day my camera will go up in a great cloud of sparks because it's got water in it. But I think cameras that aren't weather sealed, that's not to say they soak up water like a sponge. I haven't got great holes in them with water gushing in. It's just that they don't have that extra layer of insurance against the elements.
Absolutely. And a lot of the switches and dials, they do have some gaskets inside. So it's not that they're completely like bare and that water would just, like you said, go straight into the body.
like a gutter pouring it in.
Like I have, I used the Pen F, which is not weather sealed, many times outdoor in heavy snow situations as well. And so that, like you said, you change the way you shoot when you don't have a weather seal camera. And in fact, when I was using my old SLRs and some of the older rangefinder cameras, I did the same thing because none of them were weather sealed. And then so I shoot slightly more careful, perhaps after shooting, I just hide the camera in my under my coat. So just to hide away for a little bit when I see a shot again, and I'll pick up the camera and start aiming and shooting. So there are different ways of doing it, and not necessarily that you encounter a major problem, but obviously having weather sealing will have that extra assurance that you're less likely to get into trouble. I think that's probably a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of really good, interesting thing here, and I'm just going to bring them up before we can continue our conversations here. So I'm going to bring up Corey. Hello, Corey, and our regular is here.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I saw that. I saw that.
Yeah, so what if the OM system made the OM-10? Okay, this is you speaking. OM-10 is a fixed lens advanced entry camera. OM-10 Mark I, 35mm equivalent on OM-10 2, 50mm equivalent. So you are obviously basically suggesting OM system to make something like the GR, the Ricoh GR. They have the different lenses, but literally same guts, just different lens on it.
I know it's sacrilege. I've got this Panasonic 20mm 1.7 pancake lens on my EP7. That is about the same size as a Fujifilm X100V.
Yep.
But of course, you can swap out the lenses.
Yep.
So that to me, it hasn't got a viewfinder, I know, but that to me is the ideal size and shape for a fixed lens camera. I think if Olympus did make a camera with a fixed, I think the 17 f2 is 17 f1.8 is a little long, but if they made a fixed lens compact with a slightly slimmer pancake style lens, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I think Perfect. One thing, although they did have a pancake Olympus, they had the 17mm 2.8, which is quite an old lens. That one.
It is, yeah. Well, what's the focusing like? I had one for a while, but I don't know whether it would be very quick to focus with a modern body or not.
No, it's I don't have one anymore, and I found it to be quite slow, and that one, and also when you shoot the wide open 2.8, and the images were a little bit soft at the edges, and compared to any of the modern cousins, including some of the kit lenses, actually outperforms the 17 2.8. And but having said that, that was one of the earliest lenses that Olympus introduced for the Micro Four Thirds platforms, and I think that came out when the EP1 came out. That's like one of the first. Right. So that's a very old lens by today's standards. So I do hope that they make another one, and something along the line like the one you have there, 21.7. It will be pretty good. And
they've left an open goal for Panasonic there.
Yeah. Well, Panasonic make two versions, right? They had the Mark I and the Mark II already.
I've only got the Mark I. I've got also got the Panasonic 14 f2.5. Yep. It's not great. Yeah, it's all right in the center, but the edges has got some horrendous chromatic aberrations. So bad it's quite hard to fix.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Olympus could have made a couple of pancakes, or could do again. That would go well with the smaller cameras.
Absolutely, and I also think, and as we are talking about the entry level cameras, it's also very critical to have something to go with the entry level cameras to make it more appealing to the consumers, and also casual shooters. And I think a lens like that, a small, compact, high, not necessarily high performance, but like reasonable performance compared to the Pro lineup, and that would be very enticing for any newcomers and to get into the brand, because if they see something, for instance, something similar to the 21.7 on a whatever entry level camera or OM system decide to put out, the overall dimension will be so small and light, and this is kind of like what the Micro Four Thirds system should be, and that would make the whole package definitely more appealing to anyone who's looking for a lightweight, capable travel cameras.
Yeah, I think so. And I think a couple of things have happened in the entry-level market over the last couple of years that have really changed the equation. So Panasonic has largely given up with his compact MFT cameras. And Nikon, Canon, and Fujifilm, they've lost interest in that price point. So the EM10 Mark IV, without having to do anything, suddenly has the playing field to itself, really, at that price.
Yeah.
What's it up against? There isn't anything really.
No, no, not at that price point. And because when Panasonic was there, obviously it was fighting against the
Yeah,
G9 and all the other kind of similar entry level cameras.
GX9. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and but they haven't been updated since, I don't know, 4 years now, 5 years, something like that.
No, no.
And yeah, I mean, I think so. You know, this whatever coming and from OM system, the entry level cameras, it is it's very very important for the company, and I think anyway, and not only to get new customers, but also for people who wanted to upgrade, but not necessarily want to go up the level like to the OM5 or the OM1, and have something to upgrade to, because the EM10 Mark IV has been about 3 years now. So and a lot of the tech were I would say kind of, because this is another thing we want to talk about as well. Like you mentioned a little bit earlier, is that every time when an entry level camera come out, it literally kind of takes a lot of the features from the bigger brothers, and so not necessarily they have the latest and the greatest tech, but they just getting some of the advanced tech that the bigger brother had a couple of years ago, in a way. Not necessarily a bad thing, because they are trying tested features that that works. So that you're just now getting into a slightly more compact, slightly more affordable bodies. And so let's maybe just drilling a little bit about the tech side of the entry level cameras. Do you think it's a good practice for a company to put in a brand new tech or features in an entry level cameras instead of going for the flagship?
For a while, Nikon used to. Nikon's line to us was that they put their newest tech in whatever camera was due an update. So very often you get a lower level camera that got the advance because it's the one that needed the refresh.
Yeah.
Sony does it does it a little bit to its own disadvantage, I'd say. So you've got the Sony A1, which has got AI processing, a dedicated AI processor, which the $6,500. Sorry, I'll start again. Sony A7R5 has a dedicated AI processor, which the $6,500 Sony A1 does not have and probably never will. So Sony has put its new AI processing in the camera that was due for an update, not its best one.
Yep.
So I don't think Olympus would do that. I think Olympus is pretty old school. I should call it OM system, shouldn't I? Sorry. I think OM system is pretty old school and will do it from the top down.
Mm-hmm. And I think there should be, though, in a way. And I know that many may disagree with me, because every time when I review the entry level cameras, the EM10 series or the pens, and then they always say, oh, you should have the face detect from the OM5 or the EM5 or this and that. It's definitely great to have, but then again, if you're thinking about from a company's point of view, if they make the EM10 so close to the EM5, why would people buy the EM5? And it's going to be a little bit of a balancing act there, and to make sure that it doesn't cross the line that we talked about earlier. And it has to have a line to separate the entry level to the medium level and the top level. But I always think that, like you said, the EM10 series has been important for the company, and because it's the gateway, as some of you already mentioned, I kind of read something somewhere, the gateway to the brand. Many have tried and loved the EM10s because of its size, the weight, the capabilities, and the image quality, and then subsequently they upgraded to the EM5 and then EM1 later on when they advance. And this is exactly why I think the OM System's new entry camera, whenever it comes out, would be a very critical one, because this will be their first, as a company. Even though, we understand it's basically Olympus, but then again, it's just like the OM5, the OM1. They are from the new brand, from the new branding, from the new direction. So hopefully, the new entry level camera will be as successful as the EM10 series has been for the last God knows 10 years, and so it will be interesting to see what sort of thing they are going to throw into the camera, because now we all know that OM system has priorities in the wildlife and outdoor traveling sector, and but I'm pretty certain that they want the EM10 to be slightly more appealing to a wider audience, and not necessarily very focused on a certain aspect. That's how I see it, because for an entry level to succeed, it has to be a generalist. And not sure if you agree, Rod.
It has to be the right price, and it has to be the right form factor. I would say. I think as a physical object, it has to make sense for people who just want something they can sling in a bag and carry around, that doesn't cost a fortune and doesn't blind them with science. I did, just naming a different brand, didn't Leica have a slogan that went along the lines of something like the minimum necessary, or enough and no more, or something like that, with its M series rangefinders? They have only what you need and nothing more. I think in a way an entry level camera needs to do that. It doesn't have to prove any technical advantage, particularly in the current market, because what's it up against? You've got Nikon Z30, which doesn't have a viewfinder, and that's 20 megapixels, bigger sensor, but it's not quite as advanced as the current EM10 IV. What would you buy from Canon? I don't think I'd suggest anyone bought a Rebel DSLR. And the R50, well, that's all right, but where are the lenses? Fujifilm, you might be able to buy an X-T32 for a little while longer. The XS10 is in a slightly higher price bracket, even though it's a very good camera. So at the moment, I think Olympus is on its own, because all the rivals, they're up at around £1,000, all the ones you take seriously, or $1,000. So that may not seem much to somebody who owns more expensive gear. But if you're just starting out and you're still smarting about paying $1,100 for your Samsung smartphone, you're not going to have a lot of money left, are you?
Hey, that phone has 100 megapixels.
They're pixel binned. It's just a con. It's just con. So I didn't say that.
It's an interesting statement you made there. About the Nikon Z30, and you said even the current EM10 Mark IV is more advanced, because it's interesting if you elaborate a little bit, because I think it'd be quite interesting for a lot of the photographers, especially the beginner photographers, understand what they are, what's the advancements in terms of features, because a lot of people just purely believe in whatever marketing materials they have read or seen online, but that not necessarily telling the truth, simply because the marketing material is they only have one purpose, is to sell cameras. So they will dress them up as beautiful as they can to make sure that you buy their cameras. So you obviously seen different cameras from different brands, and so that particular statement interests me. When you say the EM10 Mark IV is more advanced than the Z30.
I'm going to have to check my facts now, Jeremy. I meant it in a very broad sense. It's got more lenses and it's got a viewfinder.
Yep.
That's how, to me, it's more advanced. If I was explaining to a first-time photographer what to look for in a camera, I would say you need a viewfinder and a couple of other things. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but the EM10 Mark IV shoots 4K full width, so there's no crop. Is that right?
No, there's no crop, and it's up to 30p. I think that camera.
Yeah. Well, I think that's fine. I need to check. I dare say that the Z30 can shoot 4K full width as well.
Oh, right. Okay.
I don't know. I need to check. But this is my issue with some other beginner cameras. So, for example, particularly the Canons, the new R50 is different. But previously, you could buy an EOS M50 say, oh,
Yep.
it shoots 4K. Well, it does with a big crop and without dual pixel CMOS AF. There are all sorts of little caveats and catches and
Yes.
limitations that can
Yes.
trip you up when you're buying your first camera. You think
Yep.
you're getting something, and what you get is like it's kind of watered down
Yep.
and not quite what you thought.
It is quite funny, isn't it? Every time you've seen a lot
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
ads on the magazines or websites, and you see they always highlighted what they have, but they never tell you what they don't have.
I was quite surprised by the Lumix S5 II. Sorry to keep switching brands,
Yeah.
but it's an extremely advanced new video camera. It shoots full width 4K 30p. It shoots 4K 60 and a crop, but they don't shout about that, do they? So
No.
it's. I do get annoyed when you think you're getting something and it's not quite what you hoped.
Yeah.
Or it's
But
what it seems to be.
lucky that these days internet has us, right? To tell them all about it. And well, there you go. That's the beauty of independent reviewers like ourselves to pick all these things that they don't tell you. But anyway, let's go back to the Olympus side and the OM system side. So, I mean, we have seen the EM10 Mark III and Mark IV being really successful. In fact, since the EM10 was launched way back, and it has always been very successful for Olympus, that it has brought in a lot of new customers to the brand, and also subsequently buy more cameras and lenses in the system as a result. But you can see the evolutions on the EM10 series, and that hasn't changed much from the Mark I to the Mark IV, which is the latest. Obviously, they have upped the megapixels from 16 to 20 in the latest generation, and they have bumped up a little bit of the video side, which now they shoot 4K instead of 1080. And but in terms of the actual feature, it hasn't really advanced that much. Do you really kind of anticipate maybe perhaps the OM system would change a little bit of that, maybe to give a camera maybe just a little bit more features and more advancements, and compared to the EM10 Mark IV, which I still love. I still have one on my shelf here, and so it's really nice camera.
Well, I'm going to be a bit downbeat here, having seen the M5 and having owned the EM5 III, and seen how that only a little was changed. That could happen again.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if there was, I've heard nothing. I've no idea whether OM system is planning this or not. If there were to be a new M10, I would not expect it to be very different to the EM10 IV. Maybe better processor, newer processor generation like was done with the M5. But you will not get a dramatic change in specs, I don't think. But then to me, the important thing is it already does enough.
Yeah.
And as long as OM System keeps it in the market at the right price, all the competition is just disappearing. It already does enough. So I think that will disappoint people who are looking for a big step forward in what a beginner camera can do. I don't think that will happen. I'm not sure it needs to happen.
No, I don't think so personally. And obviously some hardware upgrade, like you said, processors, perhaps maybe slightly better LCD screens, would more than enough to justify the some upgrades. But I would like to have a mic jack, and then this is something the EM10 series
it's the not. It's the no mic jack.
Yeah, always lacking the mic jack, and so if
my words, right? Okay.
Which is something that I really hope the OM system would be introducing a mic jack in the entry level camera, because that, to me, actually that would change everything. So many commenters before in my reviews was that they were really hoping the EM10 had a mic jack so they can use this as a vlogging camera.
I forgot that. Do you know what? I'm going to phone Olympus up. Sorry, I'm going to phone up OM System as soon as we're done. I can't do it now because I'm using my phone as a camera. But I'm going to phone them up and say, look, what have you been doing all these years? If you do one thing, do this. I've forgotten that.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
Because I think from an Olympus point of view, and oh, actually no, I'm just talking about from camera's point of view. The only cameras that they have mic jack is from EM5 onward. So like anything, any pens, any EM10 series, they don't have mic jack, and it's a big miss because a lot of the vloggers, especially the kind of YouTubers wannabe and the people who wanted to create content, video content, for instance, they want to have better audios, and then they don't want to go through the hassles of have to sync audio in post separately. They want it to be plugging the mic there, put it on the hot shoes, and then they just go and fire away. And this is something that I think, you know, it needs to happen. But you know, what do you all listeners think about? You can drop some comments, and what would you like to see OM Systems to add to the entry-level cameras, something that's been missing or something that you want to have happen. And that will be quite an interesting read from you guys to see what sort of thing you'll be looking forward to in the near future. But in terms of image quality, and we discussed that in the last couple of streams already, and I think personally they don't need to do too much, and because you can get brilliant photos regardless, you know, since 2012.
I think 20 megapixels is probably as far as the MFT format should go, unless there's a big breakthrough in sensor tech and design. The Lumix GH6 is interesting for having a 25 megapixel sensor, but I imagine it's very expensive, and Panasonic wants to keep that for itself. So I think 20 megapixels is fine. I think you choose a camera for the type of work or type of shooting you want to do.
Yep.
If you need more than 20 megapixels, you're talking about big high cupping format anyway. I'd skip APS-C, I think, myself. Just go straight to full frame. But you choose the camera to do the job you need it to do. And I think most people who shoot MFT feel that the results are perfectly satisfactory. It'd be nice to have bragging rights with more megapixels than your friends down at the pub or in a bar or in a cafe. Yeah. But you know, winning pub debates isn't everything.
No, and ultimately, you know, if you are genuinely interested in photography, you'll be talking about the photo and not really the gear. And whatever tool you use to capture that particular photograph that makes you happy, that's job done. You know, you don't really need more, and that means that you're probably a happier person at the end of the day than trying to compare numbers.
I think so, and I think when you go shooting, Jimmy, you take quite a big kit, don't you? Because you go with a serious intent. You set time aside. You've got a shot list to tick off, so you take a good deal of kit with you to make sure you can do it. I do a mixture of stuff. My personal stuff, if I'm going out shooting for an article or for a test, I'll take a lot of kit and set the time aside. If I'm just like, I don't know what to call it. If I'm just out shooting on instinct, seeing what I see and shooting something if I like it, I don't like having a lot of kit. And also it's some very practical things. I can't like quite like low angle shooting or shooting in bad weather. I would rather take a camera that costs me $800 or pounds the one that costs 2 or 3 times as much, particularly if I've got the screen flipped out and I've got the camera half an inch above a puddle to get a reflection and the wind's blowing. I don't want to drop an EM-13 in a puddle, but it's somehow not so bad with a cheaper camera. And the other thing is I like to show you. Oops. It's my best ever camera bag because I can. Sorry, I'm getting in the right place. It's just a lower pro dashboard.
I had one of these.
I can just stick a camera in that, sling it around my neck. My wife doesn't get annoyed that I'm going on a photography expedition when I should be going on an outing. And you don't look like a tourist, and you just and and you just take it off, stick it on the table in a cafe. It doesn't get in the way on the floor.
No.
That is how I like to shoot quite a lot. So this is why I tend to go on about cheap beginner small cameras quite a lot, because they're not just for beginners.
No.
They are very. It is often very practical to have a small camera.
That is also another point as well, and which thanks for actually bringing it up. Beginner level cameras is not just for beginners, and that is a very, very good point. You know, like I have showcased many times using entry level cameras in this channel, and that you can achieve just as good results as the pro level cameras. Because at the end of the day, you know, you have to understand how you set the camera up, how you read the light, how you compose the photographs, and how to execute a photograph. It's not so much about the gear, you know. The features obviously determine the price level, and also the you know, whatever level the camera manufacturer has set, whether it's pro, amateur, whatever. But those features are extras that doesn't actually help you make better photographs. Those features, like for instance, weather sealing, metal bodies, these doesn't help you make better photographs. They are, yeah, the better build. Yes, you can shoot in the rain, but it doesn't make you a better photographer or help you get better photographs. Yeah, you may shoot 10 frames more, but still, again, it doesn't really get you a better photograph. You may have a better chance of capturing it if you shoot 10 frames more to get a slightly better frame within a second. But then, yeah, it's the same argument. You can go on and on about the same thing. So all this extra doesn't really get you anywhere if you don't know how to photograph in the first place. So any photographer can pick up an entry-level cameras and achieve phenomenal results, and that's a fact. And then so I'm perfectly happy with the EM10, and that's basically what I want to say. I'm really happy with the EM10. The only reasons I'm picking up OM5 or OM1 for my work is because I do shoot in the rain, and of course, and because of that, I don't want to ruin my equipment because of rainy situations when I'm out and about, and obviously other reliability things that go on top of it. That's what sets the pro level cameras apart from the entry level cameras, in my opinion. And also, like I said, I don't use over 10% of the camera features that they have introduced in the cameras, and most of the time I just shoot manually with whatever I need to do, rather than relying on a lot of the automations, for instance. And you know, I know it's good to have, but it's not necessary.
I think very often we use quite advanced and expensive cameras to take pictures which are perfectly well within the technical envelope of a beginner camera. It's particularly with OM system where you've got this essentially the same sensor, the same lenses. If you're shooting at a 1/2 f11 at ISO 200 on your OM1, you'll get the same result with the same lens on the EM10 IV, because you're well within that camera's technical capabilities as well. Yep. So I think it's easy to get caught up in this kind of arms race where you're getting a better and better camera on paper, but you're not using a fraction of its capabilities, which is essentially what you're saying. But I think beginner cameras get a bad press. People don't realize what they can do.
No,
they're a beginner camera today. Does anyone remember the Canon A1?
Oh yes, I know the
and
A1.
Everyone was shocked. This is a camera that does program, it does aperture priority, it does shutter priority, it does manual. That is incredible. That's amazing. I don't care how much it is. I have to have one. It's the best camera the world will ever see. But now, if you don't get that on a beginner camera, you think this isn't a camera at all. So
we've been spoiled. We've been spoiled.
We have.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I saw some comments earlier and about I'm just trying to find a comment now. I just highlighted it. Okay, some of you actually, I'm gonna bring that in now to the screen. I own an EM10 Mark IV, and it would be the perfect YouTube blogging camera, and it is the only flip out flip up screen instead of the flip down screen, and then external mic input. They were so close, and this is something that we talked about earlier.
That flip down screen is just potty, but it's the viewfinder eyepiece. You can't flip a screen up past an eyepiece. The only way to have a front-facing screen on a camera with a viewfinder is to have a vari-angle display, and then you're stealing the M5's customers.
We can't have everything, guys. And if you want a flip up screen and also vari angle, I think someone might have to invent something very complicated to make it work. although there are some solutions out there now, right?
And you can just use the app, OM Share, or whatever it's called. And many it's the time, because I often have to shoot videos and product shots on my own, I need somebody holding a camera, and I also need somebody to work the camera. Yeah. So I just put the camera on a tripod, get the app, frame the shot with me in it, and take a picture. So a vari angle or a front facing screen makes no difference in those circumstances. If I got an app, I don't need it. So there's generally a way, but it's easy to forget these apps because they can be a real nuisance to make the connection work, and they get lag, and something goes wrong. But
This is the thing we talked about in the last couple of streams as well, about the integration of apps. And so far, I have not seen a camera company makes a really easy way to connect the app to the cameras. And they're all relying on very clunky Wi-Fi / Bluetooth / whatever connection protocol. And it's not a very easy thing to do. You launch it, you have to connect it, and you have to wait for 30 seconds or whatnot, before something happens.
And so, then one day it doesn't work and you don't know why, and it restarts everything, and eventually it does work half an hour after you wanted to take the picture. And it's also an issue on the phone because the phone's security processes. You can't have an external device enabling a Wi-Fi connection. You have to approve it yourself. Apple won't let another device start a Wi-Fi connection without you there to say yes please. Which adds another step. You can understand it's a good idea, but it just makes it even more fiddly.
Yep, it is. And I'm hoping somewhere along the line in the future, things would change about this. And because this sort of like app to camera connection hasn't changed at all for the last 10 years, I would say.
we talked about this, didn't we? Just stick a cable in, for heaven's sake. Just get a cable. I don't mind that.
Especially now that we have USB-C, which is have enough bandwidth to do it, and then you can even utilize some of the cameras that does have the HDMI ports, and so you can feed the camera the video signal to whatever phone screen / things that you can do. Well, I'm not a technical genius, and let the engineers figure out. But we also have Hafa here, and I don't know your view on this. Panasonic says that the younger generation may be a target group for Micro Four Thirds, because smaller cameras reminiscent of smartphones, and I hope that OMDS will take inspiration from it.
Well, I think Panasonic may have put that forward at one time, but I don't think the Panasonic is going to be doing that anymore. I think they've given up on that particular market. Also, I think that it's this idea that camera makers have that a camera is somehow an upgrade from a smartphone. It's a different product. There are things that smartphones can do that cameras couldn't possibly do. But cameras can achieve a sort of quality and control that smartphones can't. They're different products. So I think trying to make a new Olympus better than the smartphone, my personal feeling is that's an error, because there will always be things a smartphone will do better. You can make it different and better for some things, but don't pretend it's a complete upgrade in every respect. It isn't. It's a different product.
Unless you do create, people did try though. Remember that a few years ago, people did try to make an upgrade, kind of like smartphone with interchangeable camera mount on it, and I think it was an MFT as well. It's an MFT camera from China that has an Android interface. So essentially, you're having a smartphone at the back, which is a massive giant screen. You can load your own apps to it, but you can change lenses in front of it. But that product never made it. I think a lot of technological limits at the time, and a lot the focusing was horrible. And I remember one of the YouTube channels tested it. I think it was Kai who tested it, and yeah, it just wouldn't focus anything. So perhaps it was the execution. Perhaps the idea was there. If you really want to upgrade, kind of like a smartphone upgrade that can take better photographs, that can change lenses, that it was there. But they never make a. They did make a Mark II, but I don't think they continue to make a Mark III. And so perhaps that was the end of it.
So Sixtus has corrected me. Apparently, Panasonic made that remark about small cameras very recently. If that's what Panasonic thinks, I'd be delighted if they did something about it, because it's about time we had a new compact Panasonic. But
yeah, I mean, I think
let's see.
It's interesting as well, because now you mentioned it, Sony hasn't really given up the vlogger sector, the smaller compact camera, because they still have the ZV series, they still have the RX series. They maintaining it, and I think obviously there are rumors saying that they're going to announce another vlogging focus cameras coming up soon, and it's also looks very compact to me.
The only rumor I heard was that it might be a cheaper A7S3 full frame, but you may have seen more than I have. But I think Sony's all for making entry level vlogging cameras as long as the price is right. When was the last time Sony launched a new RX?
3 years ago, I think it was, probably. Yeah.
Which one would that be? The RX 107?
Yeah, it was a 7, because after that they launched the ZV. Then they launched the ZV afterwards, isn't it? Oh no, they have the RX A, isn't it?
No,
they have some.
The A was the variant of the 5, I think. Then there's the 6.
Has the 1.8 aperture 7. Instead of the 2.8, and then they have the ZV, and the ZV was launched about 2 years ago. The ZV, and they haven't updated it. Yeah. And, I think, but the price is quite expensive. I think, to me, this is essentially the price of an EM10. It's just around about that kind of price bracket.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting comparison, but it is very much a video focused camera. I mean, it shoots perfectly good stills, but there's no viewfinder, and it's quite an old sensor. I do believe that it's got some rolling shutter issues, but then for all I know, so does the EM10 I haven't tested it for rolling shutter. But I think the Sony RX series, the RX 100 series, I think that may have finished. And I think the RX 10 series may have finished. I'm often wrong, and I might be wrong this time, but it's been a while.
Right. Anyone wants to place a bet?
The market has shifted.
Right. Okay. So in that case, that means that OM System may be the sole manufacturers of entry level or / affordable cameras in the sector. Then.
Well, I think that's where we've got to already. I think there are some stragglers, unless you could say that the EM10 is a bit of a straggler. But the competition has gradually disappeared. Sony for a while used to sell its older cameras at ridiculous prices.
Yep.
And it seems to have stopped that. I bought an A6000 for a while, which I bought with a lens for $500 equivalent. Yep. I bought my Sony A7R II for £1,200 UK, but that's gone away. You won't get that again. So I think the makers, and I was once in a press do with some Nikon executives.
Yep.
And I asked if they'd ever do another camera the same price as the D3500 DSLR.
Yep.
And my question was met with ridicule. It's like, why would we? So the days of getting a £400 or $500 interchangeable lens camera, that's gone.
Right. Right. I mean, I in that case, I do wish OM Systems all the best about whatever entry level cameras they want to bring out, and because it's important to keep this market sector alive.
Yeah, yeah.
This is how we all got into the hobbies and how we got into taking photographs. Not everyone can afford $2,000-3,000 or pounds of cameras plus another grand or two for lenses, and I think prices these days are one of the main deterring factors for many new photographers. I mean, of course, you can get secondhand. That's for sure. But then, it's just not healthy in that sense. It's just because entry level camera has been around for as long as I can remember. In the film days, in the digital times, every manufacturers will have an entry-level cameras to entice people into the brand, to get into the ecosystems, get into the lenses and so forth. But now you're asking people to instantly fork out a couple of grand just to get in, like an entry ticket.
Well, I think realistically it's probably closer to 1,000, but
Yep.
even this is a big shift from just 3 or 4 years ago. I think most of the camera makers now feel that they can squeeze beginners for around 1,000 and get it. Whereas a few years ago, it's more like 400 or 500. So I think has been a general push up in the price of entry level cameras. And I think a lot of camera makers figured, actually, we're not making much money from this. So let's squeeze a bit harder. And the gamble might well pay off.
Yeah, it may.
Photography is going to get more expensive, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it's not something that people are looking for to hear, I'm sure. No. But like I said, there's always used market.
So you've got a comment here: do we need a new pen or not OM-10? I'm guessing that's a new Pen F. I'd certainly buy a Pen F2 with 4K. That's all I'd ask for. Just give it 4K, not 1080. I'll buy it. I'll buy the Pen F if they still made it.
I think so. You know what? Yeah, I actually think that I have received hundreds, if not thousands, of comments and messages about if Olympus / OM System still makes the Pen F, they will still buy it, and I think a lot of people are actually waiting for Pen F2. There is obviously no official words about anything, but I think there was an article that I read some months ago suggesting that there was the Japanese executives from OM System didn't rule it out altogether. And all they ever said was just watch this space. So it's a very secretive words there. And then maybe they have something in mind. Maybe have something currently doing some market research to see what sort of thing they can come up with. But I did ask a question to my viewers many months ago when I was talking about Pen F2, and is that what sort of prices would you be paying for Pen F2? Because like you said, things are getting more expensive, so you can't expect an upgraded, more advanced versions of Pen F be at the same pricing as the old Pen F. Definitely won't work. It's definitely going to be more expensive, but how much more expensive and how much any of you is willing to pay? That's the question.
I think if it did happen, it'd be between $1,500 and $2,000, I would think. But it depends on how it's marketed and how it's designed. Look how much Fujifilm can charge for an X100V.
Yeah, that's a fixed lens camera.
Yeah.
The X Pro 3 brand new is 1,500 quid or thereabout, 1,400.
Yeah,
and that's an older camera now.
And then some.
Yeah, and then if you're looking at like whatever Fujifilm come up with the X Pro 4 or whenever that come out, that is going to be approaching $2,000, if not over $2,000. You can bet on that because everything's more expensive now.
I think in some ways pricing can become part of the marketing, because if it costs that much, the implication is it must be good.
and also to help to sell off whatever inventory they have on the older models.
Well, thing is, just sticking with Fujifilm for a moment, if Fujifilm made the X Pro 4 ridiculously expensive, they're going to sell a lot more XS10s, because people think, I can't afford that one, I'll get this one instead. That's a lot cheaper. Brilliant. I'll get 2.
But then people
So-
were still trying to stretch to get the Expo 4.
Yeah, they will. They will.
That's the modern day photographer mentalities, and I'm pretty sure. And but always the same thing about any cameras, and after a year or so or two, and then the price will come down a little bit. So only the early adopters will have to pay the penalties of the increased bumped up prices.
It's surprising. It's surprising what people will spend on their hobby. When I was doing apprentice articles for N Photo magazine, I would go along on a shoot with a reader
Yep.
and a professional photographer, and we'd do an article about the reader learning from the pro.
Yep.
So I'd turn up with a Nikon D3100 because my feeling was that I ought to be able to shoot with the most basic camera because it's all about photography, not the gear.
Yep.
And then you get readers turning up with a couple of Nikon D850s and kind of pro f2.8 lenses, and I'd think, oh, that's a bit awkward.
Yeah.
But they had a lot more money than me. That's all I can say.
Well,
Don't get a job in journalism. The pay's terrible.
I am certainly not as rich as many people. I mean, I buy professional cameras only because it's my job, so it's part of my business expense. But if this is my hobby, if I'm not making money from it, I'm pretty certain that at max I'll probably just go for the OM-5, and most of the cases I'll probably just happy with the EM-10 series, and because it takes the same picture.
But you know what? The only thing I've got against the OM-5 is when you put a proper lens. Well, I say proper. I shouldn't say proper lens. When you put a big lens on, it just feels wrong.
Yep.
That's where I think you need the OM-1 or the EM-1, just for the grip and the extra size. Because any of the f2.8 Pro lenses, they just feel wrong on the OM-5.
That's obviously
to me.
Yeah, that depends on what sort of lenses you use most, and also what sort of thing you'll be photographing. But for me, I mean, I shoot a lot of portraits, so a lot of the time I just purely using the prime lenses. If not, I'll probably use 40 to 150. You probably need a grip for it, and but it's still not. I would say, well, it wouldn't be heavy enough for me to have a grip. I can still handle okay with the OM-5, maybe a little bit unbalanced, but I still manage if you shoot it with both hands. And it's I mean, I got a couple of thing here about Pen F. Actually, it's quite interesting. And Connor actually said that the Pen F was crappy or AF in low light. So whatever updates they have, you have to have better AF. But yeah. That's for sure, that, and if you compare the Pen F to OM-1, you can see a massive difference in speed and also accuracy. But we are talking about cameras from different era, or almost different era now, because Pen F is 5-6 years old now, and it's pretty old in technology's term. However, I would say
wasn't it the first one to get the 20 megapixel sensor?
It was the first 20 megapixel, yes.
And is it phase detect or contrast AF?
It was contrast detect, unfortunately.
Yeah, and probably with an old slow processor and weaker algorithms. Yeah.
I think it was true. I think it was TruePix 7 or 8. I can't remember. It was pretty old, yeah. So it's relative. Even though that at the time, when it first launched, a lot of the things weren't necessarily the latest tech, because when Pen F came out, I can't remember it came out first or the EM-1 Mark II came out first. And actually, EM-1 Mark II, the second one, have the 20 megapixel. So that means the EM-1 Mark II came out after Pen F. And EM-1 Mark II did have, obviously, the hybrid AF system, and also have the newer processor at the time, which it resulted in a much higher, better performance and speed in general. And so I guess, the Pen F was great. It's a great camera. And perhaps it was Olympus at the time. They could have waited maybe until the EM-1 Mark II launch, and then launch the Pen F1, the original Pen F, to have the guts of the EM-1 Mark II, and that would make that camera an instant classic. I think you have the hybrid AF, it will have the better processor, and that would make the camera possibly last even longer than it is already.
There are plenty of cameras out there on the market that have lasted well past what you might imagine a sell-by date today. They're like laptops. The laptop you bought 5 years, so 10 years ago you bought a laptop. you'd have to
Yep.
replace it the year after or the year after that.
Yep.
If you bought a laptop 5 years ago, it's probably still all right.
Yep.
So it's the same with cameras. The camera you bought 5 years ago, the rate of change hasn't accelerated, it's slowed down. So most of the development has been in video. There have been slow developments in high quality, high ISO shooting and autofocus.
Yep.
But it's the actual image quality itself, I don't think has shifted very far at all.
Yeah.
But this idea of what a beginner camera should be and should do, I do think it's important not to get too drawn into the tech and just remember what its function is. It has to be affordable, it has to be straightforward,
Yeah.
but it has to be versatile, and it has to be a thing that can let you go from knowing nothing to knowing what you need your next camera to do.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a product designed for that job. We're not talking about a flagship product with the best of everything.
Yeah. And
A beginner camera has a different job to do. Sorry.
Absolutely. No, it's totally right there. I mean, I think that Olympus always had that motto, even back in the film days. And the reason why they invented half frame cameras, it was to make photography affordable. And because back in the 60s, the films, even though nowadays it's more expensive to shoot a roll of film than before, but even back then, not necessarily everyone can afford a camera, let alone, trying to run the camera with films and developing and everything. Yeah. And half frame is a pretty cool idea because you're literally doubling a roll of film. So instead of 36 exposure, you can shoot 72. And then you pay the same processing cost, but you got double the amount of prints. So it's actually essentially making things more affordable, and Olympus realized that, and that's why the half frame cameras were selling like hotcakes in the old days, because it's the only way to get cheaper prints, not necessarily much degraded prints. There is a slight disadvantage in having half frame, and but it's more technical than any general day-to-day shooting, and so Olympus maintained that kind of positions there, and they always think that photography should be affordable, should be accessible by anyone, and the EM10, one of the reasons why it is what it is, and becoming the kind of almost the face of Olympus at the time, because everyone who's seen the OM-10 or used the OM-10 would love the OM-10 because of it's cheap, it's feature rich, it's generally good quality. A photograph can be produced. You have access to all kinds of lenses, within the whole Micro Four Thirds world.
I think what's different using that camera compared to other cameras in that price bracket is back when there were more cameras to choose from in that price range.
Yeah.
The EM10 was a proper camera that did what you expect a camera to do.
Yeah.
The others had things taken away or reduced that made them less appealing to somebody like me. So I found the EM10 enough. I found its rivals not quite enough. So that while they might have bigger sensors or more megapixels, the features or the handling or the finish or the design weren't to my liking. They were to a lower standard.
One thing I need to show you guys, and let me get the OM10. Not the OM-10, EM10.
I'm getting hot. My face looks like a tomato. I have to take my jumper off in a minute.
I thought it was your lighting.
It's partly that, yeah, but partly me turning into a tomato.
Okay. Right. Oh, hang on, I've got the wrong camera. There we go.
So it said Miko is saying, unfortunately, OM-D seems to be developing a niche strategy specializing in wildlife and macro. I agree. A few years ago, Olympus was making a big thing about vlogging and fashion and influencers, and I think it did that extremely well with the Pen series, which were not very advanced cameras, but they did that job brilliantly and they looked the part. And even though it's not really my sort of camera, how I longed for a denim finish EPL9. Could never get one. But anyway, I think Olympus might be unwise in turning away from its fashion vlogging pitch
No.
towards wildlife and well, wildlife really. Not everyone's a bird photographer. There's only so many 300 millimeter f4s you can sell to bird watchers. It's a small market. I think Olympus was much more convincing with the pens and that marketing angle myself.
Yeah. Okay. Right. The reason I want to show you the camera is because right, I have the EM10 Mark IV here, and you know what? Yeah, I actually personally think the EM10 Mark IV body and the grip is actually better than the OM-5/EM5.
Did you?
I do. I mean, like, you know what? I love this grip. This grip is actually better. I don't know.
It is.
Maybe
Yeah,
just,
it is.
Maybe
it
just
is.
my hands, and it is better because if you, I don't have my. Actually, I have my EM5 there, and but essentially the EM5 grip is similar to the EM10, the EM5 Mark II, just slightly different, and maybe slightly more pronounced. So this is the EM5 Mark II, but the grip on the OM10, so EM10 Mark IV, is better contour.
The EM10s have always been very handsome little cameras.
Look at it. You can't tell the difference between the OM10 and the EM5.
No.
But it does have one thing, Rod, that you hate: pop-up flash.
I don't hate it. I just don't see the point anymore. Oh, can you not just pull it off?
No, look at that. It's cute, right? It's a little thing here.
Get some Loctite, stick it down.
Look,
we'll never talk about it again. Oh.
It talks to you.
I'm going to talk back, and you won't like what I say.
Okay, right. Yep, that's I got a Mark III here as well, the EM10 Mark III. Yeah, I mean, it's a brilliant camera. I love the EM10 Mark IV, to be honest. I like how it handles, to be quite honest, and I really do. And I wish the OM5/EM5 had the same grip, like I said, and because it fits my hand really nicely, and I really do like it.
Yeah. And I think as well, it's a camera where if you I don't know, listing is somewhere probably not the most safe. If you're doing some street photography in Naples, for example, which is probably not the sort of place you'd normally go, I think you'd feel a lot less worried taking an EM10 than you would an EM1.
Yep.
Because it's not worth as much. If you drop it or somebody steals it or it falls under a bus or whatever might happen to it, your exposure, there's a good word, your financial exposure and emotional exposure is reduced.
You want to be discreet, especially when, you know, we always talk about street photography. You need to be discreet. You need to blend into the environment. Why would you want to get a massive lens, massive camera that people can tell straight that is going to worth about $3,000? You know, you don't want to do that.
You have to look like a Muppet.
You do. Yeah. So
look like a tourist.
Secretly get a EM10 and go and shoot street.
This is why a flip-up screen is good, because I'm not very good at street photography. I'm not at all confrontational. Yeah. So I don't like. It feels like an invasion of somebody's privacy to just step in front of them and take a picture. I don't like doing that. What I tend to do is I like to sit and wait for somebody to walk past where I need them to be in the frame, and then take the picture. But if you it doesn't work on this because it's got no viewfinder. But if you're doing this, that's a bit obvious, isn't it?
Yeah.
But if you've got a camera down here and you're fiddling with the screen, it's not obvious at all.
Well, I don't know. You know, I'm slightly different. I actually go and confront the person in front of me to take a picture.
I find that really uncomfortable.
I have done it many times, and I can tell you some people can be a little bit more aggressive than I expected. But that's the way I shoot anyway. But yeah, being discreet is very, very important. And to be honest, even these day and age, if you hold a camera like this and you're walking around, people think it's still a film cameras. And I've been told so many times that are you shooting film? I say shooting film. I said, no, this is a digital camera. And even
Yeah.
now, when I walk out with a camera like this, the people still think I'm shooting film. So that is why I think that I mean, to me anyway, Olympus OM-D cameras are pretty nice looking, and certainly doesn't shout expensive or new in a way. It looks classic.
Yeah.
It looks like an old SLR that you hang around your neck, and doesn't really come out and shout, I got money.
This is so you get very different types of tourists, don't you? If you're in a tourist group, you've got the type you just described, who will have their D850 and half a dozen lenses, usually on a waistcoat or some kind of pseudo military webbing around their body.
Yeah.
Which isn't. It's not me. It's not me. I don't like being conspicuous because it just makes things more difficult.
Yeah, yeah, and another thing is, I mean, obviously we're slightly sidetracking now, but But since we are talking a little bit about the entry level cameras, and OM-10 is being one of the lightest in the lineup, and which really helps the overall traveling experience if you're walking for long, if you're hiking or doing things, and because I obviously review bags in this channel as well, and I have backpack being sent to me, and quite often I find myself that I can't, even with everything that I needed to fit into the bag, I still only use up to about 2/3 of what the bag would hold. I can't fill it up because everything is small, and this is something people don't realize. And when you have micro four thirds systems, and any of the modern day carrying solutions are too big for what we need.
They are.
Way too big.
You can't make the compartments small enough for the lenses.
Look,
and you have to put them in.
You can't do this. This is too small. This lens, this is a 45 1.8, and then there's no compartment that can fit this little thing.
It's not big enough. It's going to rattle wherever you put it. It is actually an issue. But I'm going to suggest one thing. I don't think the EM10 itself is Olympus's secret weapon for beginners. See, I think it's this.
The lens? Oh, the pancake zoom lens.
It's the 14 to 42.
Yep.
Because that lens makes the camera small. There is no other lens like it. That is what makes the camera portable. It's not a brilliant lens. It's optically adequate, shall we say, but this is what makes the system portable.
I'm starting to showcase everything I have now.
Yeah.
And there you go.
You're all day.
There you go.
Yeah,
I have it.
Exactly.
I have the same lens.
You got a denim EPO9.
Yes.
That's the one I wanted.
I love the denim blue.
That's the one I want.
And I have the special cap. I have the Penf's cap. You know how much they charge for this little thing.
I can imagine. So here's my other point.
Yeah.
When Olympus was committed to its Pen EPL series, and they did those different colors, I think they had it nailed.
Yeah.
And I think for Olympus or OM system to step away from that, it's a mistake. Because you've only got to look at that denim. It's an EPL9, right? That one you've got there.
That's the EPO9. Yes, that's it. Yeah.
For Olympus or OM system to step away from that, you only have to look at it to know that is a winner, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Particularly in the beginner market, because who would buy any other brand when you can buy that? Yeah, or am I just very shallow?
No. The reason I wanted this because of the color.
Exactly.
Look, I have many cameras to use, but the reason I actually got this is because of the color. Because all of them are black, silver, or black and silver. That's basically it. The EP7 has white, and then but you gotta have this or the brown. All the different color options there. It's brilliant, and many people bought the brown, the EPL8 as well. They had the brown version, the EPL8, and then
they're just playing it cautious because they thought blue, bit extreme. Let's go for brown. No,
It's
but
one of a kind. I'll bet this will become a collector's item in the future.
right. I'm going straight on MPB after this. See if I can get one.
I actually think I saw one, but that was a couple of months ago now, and they had a blue one there. And
So I think the Opinon 9 is interesting because when I was curating buying guides, I kept putting that in long after everybody else had 20, 24, 26 megapixel sensors, because I was quite convinced that even though it's a little more primitive and less sophisticated than the competition, it was the perfect camera for the job. It was the only one amongst them that I would say to somebody. Somebody said to me, I want to buy my first camera. I would tell them to buy that one.
Yep.
Because of the package. It's not the most advanced.
No, but it's enough. Like you said, these cameras can take brilliant photos. Yeah. Regardless, it hasn't got a 2x2 dials there or whatever, so it's changing apertures and shutter speed is not as easy as it can be. And but this is perhaps one of the more, I would say, more point and shoot than actually a photographer's tool. But it's cool, my wife used it. She loved it. And
I think if you're aiming at that market, it does have to be good at pointing and shooting before it's good at anything else. I think the mistake that can be made, it's I think what Canon did with the M100, that the entry level mirrorless. They made it point and shoot and took everything else away. You can't take everything else away because you just end up with a rotten little camera. So John says the lack of an accessory EVF is a deal breaker. I can sympathize because I love the look and handling of my EP7, but not having a viewfinder, that is quite painful.
You know what? One of my wishes is that OM system is to reintroduce the accessory port, and it's actually quite useful. They had an ecosystem before, and where you can put in LED lights. So you don't know if you remember the accessory.
I had an EP1.
So it's one. Yeah, one of them is slot on top of it using the accessory port. Have two kind of bendy arms and have two LED light at the front. It's super useful for macro. I'm telling you, because you don't have to get the expensive macro flash on the front that you fix in front of the lens. And in fact, the LED is actually better because it's continuous light. That means you can do macro videography. So
and it's very bright when you're that close as well.
Yeah, and it's brilliant. And now that accessories become obsolete because there's no cameras that can utilize it now. And I actually had that light, and it's really, really cool. I love that. I love that little accessory there, and also like John said, the EVF, and I actually have the EVF as well, and the EVF 2 I had, not the 1 or the 4. The EVF 2 is because it's also compatible with the Leica M240. They use the same port, which is actually the same technology, and so I had the EVF 2, and I actually love using it to do vertical shooting. So I can actually bend the EVF 90 degree and shoot waist level. So instead of using the LCD screen and flip up, I just use the EVF, and then it's actually very good. And I love that.
You've got a Pen F, haven't you, Jimmy? How far does the viewfinder eyepiece stick out?
Not very far. I can bring it down. So my God, I'm bringing about 10 cameras down now.
Yeah, get them all. Get them all. You'll only have to get up and down a load more times if you don't.
There we go. Well, I need to exercise anyway. There you go. That's the ooh, look at that. What I have here. What Laowa lens I have here.
This is the 6.
This is a 6.
yeah. You got one.
6.
I still can't buy one. I still can't buy one.
So it doesn't really stick out that much compared to Leica anyway. And
so this is my point about the Pen F. To me, one of the most charming aspects is that packs in a bag. Yes. Almost as well as one of the pens, where the others with the viewfinder on the top don't quite.
If you look at it, it's actually thinner than the EPL.
Yeah.
because the EPF
Yeah.
has a different screen here, and then the whole kind of fixture is actually thicker. If you look at the, I'm trying to get it now side by side.
Yeah. So the rangefinder design to me is much nicer because it slides in and out of a pocket much more nicely.
Yeah, and the reason I have the 6mm is because I do some really nice wide-angle street shots, low-level street shot, and with a 6mm you can basically stop on the f4 and you can use hyperfocus, so literally everything's in focus. So it's really an easy combo to use some kind of quirky street photography. This combo is really brilliant, and that's why he's kind of fixed to the lens at the moment, fixed to the body at the moment.
If there's any wide-angle fans out there, get a chance to try that Laowa 6mm. It is ridiculous. It's better than it's got any right to be. It shouldn't be that good.
It's ridiculous.
It doesn't look like it will be. But no, you take some shots with it, and where's the corner shading? There isn't any.
No,
where's the edge softness? There isn't
any. There's no distortion. It's straight.
No.
Everything's straight for a 6mm lens. This is incredible.
And because it's a kind of, it's that, I know that one's got a chip in it, but there's no digital correction. This is all optical correction.
Absolutely, and you don't need to. So that means that this is a really, really good lens, and that is why it's the lens of the year.
if anyone next time you're in a bar and all your full frame mates are ganging up on you, with their brilliant cameras and their lenses, just say to them, Laowa 6mm f2. What have you got? And then they won't have anything. They won't. There's no comeback.
Although Laowa just released a full frame 12mm, which is basically same focal length, and it was 1.2. Was it 1.2 f2? I can't remember now. It's ridiculous.
Is it full frame, that one? Incredible.
Yes, it's full frame. I read some of the articles, and it's probably somewhere there. Well, obviously I'm not reviewing it because I'm not in a full frame batch, no. But it's interesting to see that they have released another ultra wide for full frame.
I think the only thing I would say is not all Laowa lenses are spectacular. Some of them are spectacular, some of them not so much. But
no. But when they do it right, they do it right.
They do it right.
Let's put it that way.
So do you think the new OM-10 should have phase detect F? That would take something away from the M5, so I can see that from a marketing point of view. Also, having used Olympus's modern contrast AF on the EP7, it is very quick. It's very quick. I'd say for stills, it's at least as quick as my EM5 III and the M1. If uncannily, it sometimes seems quicker. I don't think it'll be quite as good for continuous video AF, but for stills,
no,
there's no disadvantage.
No,
I don't think.
And if for those who may be thinking that the contrast detector on the Olympus system is not capable of doing CAF for stills, in fact, there is a setting that you can do to get better continuous shots. Okay, it will slow down the frame rate and dramatically. So like if the camera is capable of doing 10 frames per second, you're literally going down to 3.5, maybe even 4 frames per second. If you don't mind that sort of speed, if you want to get a tack sharp shot, you can select in the menu and basically ask the AF system to confirm focus before it shoots.
Yeah. So it's like focus priority. Yeah.
Basically, yes. So basically, the camera won't keep shooting at the speed that it's capable of without confirming focus. So it will only take the shot when the AF actually detects the focus, and it works well.
In fairness, you will also have the same choice with DSLRs or mirrorless cameras that have PDAF. And if you choose focus priority with those, you will get a pretty substantial slowdown with PDAF as well, because it's quicker, or it's quick, but it's not instantaneous. So it's always a compromise.
It is, and for those who thinks that the latest and the greatest AF system from whoever on the market right now, can get really great CAF results. And I think it's a perceived sharpness we're talking about. If you really drill into the details, look at the pixel level, they are not necessarily actually in focus in most cases. And it just that range of, that you think is sharp enough to do the job. And because I often do CAF and in certain dynamic situations when I shoot portrait, let's say if I want to ask the subject to dance around, do things, I'll obviously enable CAF instead of single AF. And in those instances, and even though the hit rate is pretty high, but if you really look into it, do some pixel peeping and studying, you will find that they are not as good as people may think. And I have tested other system, they are equally similar. Like even Sony's CAF may think they have the best system in the world, but I also find that some of the shots are slightly out of focus. I would say just ever so slightly, so it's not really, really pin sharp. If you want really sharp photos, they're actually like a needle, and you want to do AF confirm, and AF priorities in CAF, and you won't shoot the same speed, but you will almost guarantee to have a really sharp shot.
I often think as well that when you look in a viewfinder, and you see focus confirmation that appears to be doing brilliant focus tracking with no lag, following things all over the frame, what you're seeing is the camera thinks it knows where to focus. That's no guarantee it actually will. So it applies across all cameras. So that it's one thing getting focus confirmation. It's quite another whether the camera can get the lens to that focus point after it's confirmed, especially at 10 frames a second. So your actual hit rate may be different to what you see in a viewfinder.
And to be quite frank, unless they are critical shots that you need, the frame the frame speed, and sometimes if you just want to capture a couple of moments of your kids running around, I think CDAF is actually more than sufficient. And in normal lighting situations, CDAF is actually very quick and also very, very accurate. And I know Robert actually just made a comment that not putting PDAF in new products is almost dead on a rival product.
I'm sorry, I just can't agree. I can't agree. It depends on the camera and what you use it for.
And it's a difficult thing to argue. And I think CDAF still has its place. And for single shot, for single AF, and also for normal situations, I think CDAF is plenty. It has accuracy, that's for sure. It has accuracy, and is in some instances I actually find that CDAF is actually sharper. It actually nailed the focus better than PDAF.
Well, that's because with contrast AF, the sensor, you're checking the sharpness on the sensor. That's why again that flutter. Because it's going to and fro to check the sharpness on the sensor. PDAF simply works out how unsharp it is, works out how far it needs to shove the lens in the right direction. It doesn't check it sharp when it gets there. So contrast AF may be slower technically, but it's also more precise technically. Also, sorry to mention another brand, Jim. My Lumix G9, for all its faults, its contrast AF in stills photography is stupidly fast. It is insane. I don't know how they did it. Not so good continuous AF for video, but stills, it is faster than any PDAF system I've used.
Well, I think in terms of contrast detect, Panasonic had really kind of perfected it in a way that no other camera manufacturer has done it, and that may be due to the stubbornness that they didn't want to do the hybrid AF.
Well, they've had to change their minds.
They finally have changed it. And but having said that, and I think that for most people, and I know that unless you are a very demanding photographer, CDAF is actually I think is reasonable, is still fine, and unless you really want to do CF and videos.
I think it's a telling point as well that the mirrorless makers who use phase detect AF also use contrast detect. They use hybrid systems. So all Sony cameras use a mix of phase detect and contrast detect. If contrast detect was no good, it wouldn't be in there. So I think they're using phase detect for speed when it matters, or contrast AF for accuracy when it matters. And most, if you read the specs, you'll find that most mirrorless makers are using hybrid systems that use both setups.
Yes. Well,
so it's not that one is a revolution and the old one is archaic technology. They're
Yep.
different technologies that have different strengths. On
Yes.
balance, you might say phase detect is quicker and more reliable, but that's not to say that contrast AF is useless. Far from it.
No, and in fact, for people who doesn't know, or is basically that all the latest iterations of OM-5, EM-5 Mark III, and EM-1 Mark III X, OM-1, they all have hybrid AF, so they actually both employing CDAF and PDAF at the same time. And so obviously the camera will decide what system it will use at certain situations. And before the firmware 3.0 update on the EM1 Mark II, it was actually using CDAF on videos, although it uses PDAF on photos. But Olympus realized that the CDAF on video didn't really work too well because it was hunting too much, and then so they enable the PDAF feature in video. That transformed the whole thing. So for video shooter, for CAF people, yes, PDAF is definitely a better option because it constant movement there. All you need the system to do is to acquire the relative focus. Rather than absolute focus, because CDAF will try to get absolute focus. So that's the difference between the two.
And what you can't have in video is the focus checking that contrast AF uses, because that's where you get the fluttering.
Yep.
So you have to have PDAF to make that decision about where to focus and stick there.
Yep.
Whereas you can't have it checking and making micro adjustments frame by frame.
No. And the good thing about hybrid AFs like the OM1 and OM5 these days is that if PDAF fails, it will try to use CDAF to confirm, and then so it's actually pretty good to have both, the best of both worlds, because you do know that accuracy, obviously for photographer, is critical, and CDAF will give you the accuracy. And in situations when movement is priorities, and PDAF is obviously takes over.
I think for stills photography, my EP7 has contrast AF only, but it's the only camera where the focusing is fast enough that I think the touchscreen tap shutter function is actually useful, because you can frame a scene, just tap where you want it to focus, and the shutter response is almost instantaneous.
Yeah.
So years ago, contrast AF could never have done that, but a modern implementation of contrast AF can be very, very quick indeed for stills.
Yeah. And Som Moon Young is having a comment here. Better sensor, lighter body, and now comes with image stabilizers on certain cameras. We have a brief talk about sensors, and I think sensors for stills, I'm talking about stills, hasn't really advanced that much over the last few years. And to be quite honest, if you're purely looking at image qualities and shooting photos and stills, I think that you're not going to see much difference, even if you go for the latest and the greatest this year, and maybe even next year. You're not going to see that much of advancements in ultimate image quality. But for videos, or for those who really using electronic shutter only mode, newer sensors may be better, because the readout speed will be vastly improved, and that means rolling shutter is reduced, and then several aspects of it will be obviously better tailored for that kind of shooting style. But for those still relying on traditional shutters, and we'll find that it's basically the same, because you don't really need the ultra fast readout speed for that sort of scenarios. But for video, yes, if you're hybrid, if you're shooting videos, then you probably want a better sensor, that's for sure. And this is why OM1, the BSI sensors, is particularly good for that scenario, is that the rolling shutter is almost is not there, and then it's really good because the readout is so quick, and it's really good for silent shootings and also for videos.
That's why so many makers are going for stacked sensors now, because you need the faster readout speed so much. I think for stills photography, we still see small gains in high ISO image quality because the processors are more powerful.
Yeah.
But I think mostly what we're paying for these days is for the sheer processing overheads of 4K video, especially on cameras which have much higher than 4K native resolution. So if you've got if you've got a camera like the Sony A7 IV,
Yeah.
which oversamples, I think it's 5.7K or 6K down to 4K. No, it must be more. It must be 7K. In any event, that kind of real-time oversampling to get full width capture of good quality is an enormous processing overhead. That's what's costing you the money in new cameras. Well, I think to a large degree it is. It's getting high frame rates, full width uncropped video with oversampling, which is, for those unfamiliar with the tech, it means you're capturing, if you've got a 30 megapixel camera, you're capturing 30 megapixel frames, downsampling them down to 4K on the fly at 30 frames a second.
Yeah.
That is a lot of processing power. That's what's costing the money. And CF Express Type A and Type B cards to cope with the readout speeds and the data. Yeah. So most of the advantages we're seeing, I would say, are probably for video. The spin-off advantages with high frame rate, burst shooting, and electronic shutters, but it's mostly for video, I would say.
So all in all, I think that what you're suggesting is that a lot of the modern digital cameras these days are literally overkills. And
well, I think you have to make sure you're buying what you need, and not buying what you don't need. So.
Or what you want, because want and need is two separate things, right?
Well, we always want the best thing.
Yes,
and the
we
most
do.
expensive thing, because
don't we all?
because cost is reassuring, isn't it? You think, it's that costs that much money, it must be good. I better buy that. I feel better.
You know what they say, whenever I see a new camera release and I saw the price, I said, "Oh my god, who can afford that sort of prices?"
Yeah.
And
I did Fujifilm's GFX medium format cameras. They're very nice, but the only time I'll ever get my hands on one is to review one. I can never afford one. Mind you, GFX 50S2 under £4,000 now, or $4,000.
It's closer to a full frame body.
It's cheaper than some, though it doesn't do the same things. But yeah, that's quite tempting. If you want image quality, you could just skip full frame.
I thought we were talking about entry level cameras.
We are.
When did we get up to the high end stuff?
Stop changing the subject, Jimmy. Stop it. So yeah.
Okay, right. Go on.
So
sorry.
I think I'll try and get back to where we started by saying we need to understand what we want and accept when enough is enough. And for a lot of people, the price is going to be the main thing.
Yeah.
Price, simplicity, and a product made for the job. And that's where I think that's where OM System needs to be looking.
Yeah.
If it wants to stay in this market.
And I think they had a good chance of doing so, because they have been doing, and then they're the only one who hasn't really given up on the entry level market, and still the entry level cameras are as good as ever. And I think that they should continue this trend, and even though that it may potentially be a small incremental updates to the current camera, but there's no need to actually vastly improve an entry-level product, because it's already a capable product. There are a few improvements. Maybe they should add in, like I said, hopefully they will throw in a mic jack in there to make it a true kind of a solution for entry-level bloggers and vloggers, people who want to plug a mic directly to the camera and record videos. So that will be really helpful. And I don't think video in terms of frame rates and codecs and stuff like this is important for anyone, beginners anyway. As long as they know they can shoot videos, I don't think the frame rate will matter too much. And but as long as you need to have the audio side sorted, and I think that will make it a more perfect camera.
Video is complicated enough. You don't need to make it worse. I think an audio jack is fine, but you don't need 10-bit capture. You don't need intra frame or all intra options, or you don't need HDMI raw or any of that Keep that for the professionals. It's
and
hard
quite
enough
frank,
to shoot video anyway.
absolutely. And for quite frank, like for most people who are aspiring making YouTube videos and things like that, you don't really need something like a cine camera that costs you 40 grand.
No.
And a simple camera that makes videos is more than enough. But remember, audio is very important. So like, make sure that you sound professional, and so that's why I think a mic jack will transform the entry-level camera dramatically if they have that option. And I think the next camera would be hugely successful because I think it needs it. And apart from that, I love it, and it's just a great camera. Just a great camera to look at, a great camera to hold, small, light, and more importantly, affordable. Hopefully, it still is.
I hope OM Systems remembers that, and perhaps makes a denim one. That'd be good.
Yeah. Change the black grip into like a blue grip, and then that'll be quite nice.
Yeah,
That
but
would be quite nice.
It already does enough. That's very disappointing for people who like tech and like constant change. But I think it already does enough. They need to keep it in the market and keep it fresh, but they don't have to do a lot to it to achieve that.
No, and like you said, there are a lot of people who are just looking for an affordable camera that can shoot beautiful photos. As simple as that.
Yeah.
And for that, I think the entry-level EM10 Mark IV does a great job, and the potential update from OM system will do equally the same. I don't see anything more that you would need for an entry-level cameras. And if they do, you might as well just go and buy the OM5 or OM1, because if you need more features, they do have an option, right? You don't want the OM10 sell for cheaper but have the same capabilities as OM5. Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense. Otherwise,
you just need a camera that does the basic stuff well. So maybe to upgrade the stabilization a little. I don't know what the rating is at the moment. That's always been a strong point. But you just need a camera that doesn't need much mental effort to operate, but it delivers consistently sharp pictures that you're pleased with.
Yep, absolutely.
That's really what it's there for.
Okay, right. We are running out to the end of our chat today, and it's been vastly interesting, and so many of you have contributed, and so hopefully you guys all enjoy it. And we're gonna answer a couple of last questions before we're gonna wrap up and call it a day. And so Jason actually said that, did I actually ever handle an EPL10? And I can tell you that the EPL10 is actually EPL9.
Yeah, they fiddle with a couple of interface things.
They did. They actually added 2 filters,
right,
and that's it. So essentially the EPL10 is the EPL9, and so if you're not too fussed about the art filters in the camera, then the EPL9 is actually the same camera, and you got more color option with the EPL9 than the EPL10, because I think EPL10 only comes with black, white, and maybe brown. I'm not entirely sure whether they had the brown option, but it's not many options in terms of colors. But if you got more colors, the EPL9 had more colors.
Yeah.
To
Mighty's DP review, that's extremely sad and quite shocking. I don't know what else to say about that. It's a reminder that working for a big corporation does not make you safe. They've got lots of money, but it also means that you're just small fry in the organization.
Yeah.
So DP review was very big for all of us, but it was almost nothing to Amazon. So it's shocking and sad, really.
It is, and I think I'm more sad about the accumulative information that they have. Is that all being? Over gone? The years. Yeah, it's literally get wiped out, and I think that's just. That's the saddest part, and for the closure, if they keep the website running when people can still access the data, and that may not be as bad as people may think, but then but now they're closing the entire thing down, and I think that really hurts, and because there aren't many websites out there that has that sort of information and or data, so to speak, and so if you want to for those pixel peepers, they love to look at those charts comparison between 4 different cameras, and that's fantastic. Sometimes you're interested in those things, and you can really have that in DP review and not any other website that I've seen so far.
Their conclusions were always longer than my reviews.
Oh dear. Yeah,
There,
and
there won't be another side like that, so it's a bit of a
no,
shocker, that one. Yeah.
no. So I think that the ultimate bottom line is that if you guys value reviewers like ourselves, and remember
That's a bit of a shameless plug.
remember to support us. Remember to support us, and yeah, because without you guys' support and things, that we will disappear as well. Because ultimately, we're here trying to do something for the photography sectors, whichever genre, whichever formats you're looking for, and we are here trying to do something. And obviously, every reviewer has their own take on certain gear, but that's up to you to decide which one suits you most, and whichever articles or video you see, it's entirely up to you to decide. At the end of the day, we can't really influence you in a way. We can only show you what we think about the product, and we show it with examples, clips and photos and so forth, and we tell you our experience with it, and that's all we are doing. We're not really trying to get you to buy something most of the time, and unless it's a sponsor video, obviously that's a different different story. And yeah, our work is here to make sure that you have informed informations on certain products, and if you like it, and of course, and that's good for all of us.
So a great thing about the internet is you can go out there and you collect opinions, which is how most of us use it. So hopefully you might have collected a couple from us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and remember to support both Rod and I, and whatever we do, that'll be great. So yeah, thank you very much for all of you tuning in, and it's been a great pleasure once again to have all of you here and see some new faces, see some new familiar faces. So it's all good, and this community is growing by the day, and hopefully that we'll have a big enough community. We'll do something special together. Let's call it a future date, and we can all do that. Will be really, really cool. So next time we're going to do something slightly different, perhaps a different title, different topics. But if you have any ideas that you would like us to talk about, don't forget to comment in this chat room afterward, and we will sure be reading all of your comments and your ideas about our future chats. I think that will be really good. So thank you very much, Rod, for joining once again, and all of you who are listening or watching in right now or in the future. That's what I want to say. Okay, until next time, we shall call it a day, and I shall roll in the outro now. Okay, bye for now.